The old chief, Tacoma, had 2 sons. The first was called Ashki. He was strong, silent, and feared by every enemy beyond the red cliffs. The second was called Chaitin. He was younger, quicker with laughter, and his arrows never missed the heart of a running. Dear Dot, the people said the 2 brothers were like 2 fires from the same sacred flame, different in color, equal in heat. Their father loved them both, but he also feared the day when one heart would want what the other heart wanted. That day came with a woman named Mara. She was not from their village. She arrived one autumn evening with dust on, her dress and sorrow in her eyes. Her father had been killed by raiders. Her mother had died on the long road. West Dot she carried nothing but a blanket, a small knife, and a voice so gentle that even angry men lowered their heads when she spoke. Tacoma gave her shelter. The women gave her food. The children followed her, because she smiled at them as if every child mattered. Ashki noticed her first. Near the river Dot, she was washing blood from the wing of an injured hawk. Most people would have left the bird to die. Mara held it. Carefully, she whispered to it. Ashki stood behind the cottonwood trees and watched. He did not speak, but something inside him became quiet. A few days later, Chaitin found her in the same place. Hawk was stronger now. Mara opened her hands and let it fly. Chaitin laughed with joy when the bird rose into the blue sky. Mara laughed too, and that sound entered his chest like sunlight. From that day on, both brothers changed. Ashki brought wood to Mara's lodge before sunrise. He said nothing and walked away. Chaitin brought wildflowers and stories. He made her smile. The village saw everything, and the old chief saw more than anyone. One night, Tacoma called his sons to the council fire. The flames painted his old face in gold and shadow. He looked at a shki, then at Chaitin. He said, "A woman is not a prize for warriors to win." The brothers lowered their eyes. Thko Ma continued, "If Mara chooses one of you, the other must keep his honor." Ashki nodded. Chay Tun nodded too, but neither of them spoke. Because both of them already knew the truth. They loved the same woman. Days passed. The air grew colder. The mountains wore thin crowns of snow. Mara felt the storm gathering around her. She admired Ashki's strength. She trusted his silence. But Chaitin made her heart feel young again. Still, she feared choosing one brother would destroy the other. Then, one evening, Ashki found Chaitin sharpening his knife outside the lodge. The younger brother looked up for a moment. They were boys again. 2 brothers, 2 sons, 2 hearts beating under the same moon. Chaitin said, "Brother, I never meant to stand against you." Ashki answered, "Love does not ask permission before entering a man." Chaitin smiled sadly. "And what do we do now?" Ashki looked toward Mara's lodge. Smoke rose from the roof hole. Warm. Peaceful. Impossible. He said, "We do what our father taught us. We let her heart speak." Chaitin nodded. But behind them, in the darkness, someone was listening. A man named Rusk. He was a trader who had been allowed near the village because he brought metal tools and salt. But his eyes were cold. He had wanted Mara since the first day he saw her. She had refused him twice, and he had not forgotten the shame. That night, Rusk watched the 2 brothers walk away from each other. A slow smile moved across his face. He saw love. He saw jealousy, and in jealousy, he saw a weapon. The next morning, the village woke to screams. Chaitin was found near the river. His body lay beneath the cottonwood trees. His knife was gone. Blood darkened the stones. Mara fell to her knees and cried his name. Tacoma stood like a mountain that had been split by lightning. Then one of the young hunters shouted. He had found Ashki's bracelet in the mud. The bracelet was stained with blood. Every eye turned. Ashki stepped forward. Pale with shock, he looked at his dead brother, then at the bracelet, then at his father. I did not kill him, he said, but grief does not listen easily, and rage hears only what it wants. Tacoma's voice broke like dry wood. You were seen arguing with him. Ashki shook his head. We spoke as brothers. A warrior grabbed Ashki's arms. Another took his knife. Mara stood and cried. No, he would never do this. But the village was already burning with pain. Ashki looked at his father. He did not resist, because he was innocent, and because an Apache warrior did not fear truth. As they tied his hands, Ashki looked once at Chaitin's lifeless face. Then he whispered, Brother, I will find who did this. The wind moved through the cottonwood leaves, and somewhere beyond the river, the injured hawk circled in the sky. As if it had seen everything. Ashki spent 3 days inside a wooden holding lodge. He was not treated like a criminal. He was treated like a man under suspicion. But for a warrior raised with honor, that was painful enough. Outside, whispers spread through the village. Some believed he was innocent. Others believed jealousy had pushed him to murder. Only Mara refused to doubt him. On the 4th night, she came to see him. A guard allowed her to speak from outside the fence. Ashki stood slowly. His eyes looked older than before. Mara fought back. Tears. I know you did not kill him. For the first time since Chaitin's death. Ashki almost smiled. Thank you. Then who did? I don't know yet. Mara lowered her voice. Someone wanted people to blame you. Ashki nodded. The bracelet was placed there. You are sure? I lost it 2 days before Chaitin died. Mara's eyes widened. Did you tell anyone? No. Both realized the same thing. The killer knew things only someone watching the brothers would know. Meanwhile, Chief Tacoma could not sleep. He had lost one son, and the other sat imprisoned. His heart was breaking from both sides. That evening an old tracker named Vicasa approached him. Wicasa had followed trails for 40 years. Few men could read the earth better. I examined the riverbank. Again, he said. Thkoma looked up, and there were 3 men there that night. The chief froze. 3? Vicasa nodded. Your 2 sons? And the third? I do not know. Hope appeared for the first time in the chief's eyes. The next morning Vicasa showed the tracks. Several hunters gathered around. The evidence was clear. 3 different sets of footprints. Not 2. Murmurs spread through the crowd. Ashki's case suddenly looked very different. But before anyone could celebrate, another discovery was made. The 3rd tracks led toward the trading camp outside the village, toward the place where Rusk stayed. When questioned, Rusk remained calm. I never went near the river. Then why do your tracks lead there? Asked Vicasa. Rusk shrugged. I walk everywhere. Nothing could be proven. Not yet. That night, however, Mara remembered something. The evening before Chaitin died, she had rejected Rusk again. He had become angry, very angry. His final words returned to her memory. If I cannot have peace, neither will you. The words sent a chill through her body. The next morning she rushed to tell Thkoma. The chief listened carefully. For the first time, suspicion shifted away from Ashki, but there was still no proof. Without proof, Apache law could not condemn a man. Ashki was finally released from confinement. Some warriors welcomed him. Others still watched him carefully. Ashki accepted both. He held no anger toward his people. They had loved Chaitin. 2. That evening he stood alone beside his brother's grave. The sun was sinking behind the mountains. Ashki knelt silently. I failed to protect you. The wind moved through the grass. I swear I will find the truth. Then he heard footsteps behind him. It was Mara. She sat beside him. For a long moment neither spoke. Then she said quietly, "Your brother believed in you." Ashki looked at the grave. "I hope so." He did. The two sat together until darkness covered the valley. Neither realized someone was watching from far away. Rusk. Hidden among the rocks. And for the first time since the murder, fear appeared in his eyes, because the truth was beginning to move. And truth was the one enemy he could never control. The village remained quiet for many days. The truth had finally been revealed. Ashki's name was cleared. Rusk was judged according to Apache law and sent away under guard to face justice among the frontier authorities for his crimes. But although the mystery was solved, the pain remained. Every morning Ashki visited Chaitin's grave. Every evening Chief Takoma sat alone beside the council fire. The village had recovered its honor, yet it had not recovered its son. One afternoon, Mara found Ashki near the river, the same river where everything had begun. For a while, they watched the water flow. Neither spoke. Finally, Mara broke the silence. "Your brother saved your life." Ashki nodded, "And I never thanked him. You loved each other." Ashki looked down. "We were supposed to grow old together." Mara gently touched his hand. "He would not want you to live inside grief forever." Ashki did not answer, but her words stayed with him. Days became weeks. Winter slowly loosened its grip on the land. Snow disappeared from the valleys. The first green plants peered near the riverbanks. Life was returning. And slowly, so were the hearts of the people. One evening, Chief Takoma called Ashki to his lodge. The old chief looked older than before, but there was peace in his eyes. "I have something for you." From a wooden chest, he removed an eagle feather necklace. It had belonged to generations of Apache leaders. One day it would belong to Ashki. The young warrior stared at it silently. Takoma smiled faintly. "You have shown strength." Then he shook his head. "No, strength is the wrong word." "What is the right word?" asked Ashki. "Honor." The old chief pointed toward the village. "Many men can fight." Then he pointed toward Chaitin's grave. "But not every man can suffer injustice and still remain honorable." Ashki felt emotion rise inside him. His father continued, "You have made me proud." For the first time since Chaitin's death, father and son embraced. Outside the lodge, Mara saw them together, and she smiled. Later that night, a spring celebration began. Families gathered around large fires. Children laughed. Drums echoed beneath the stars. For the first time in many months, joy returned to the village. Ashki stood apart from the crowd. As usual. Then Mara approached him. "You always stand alone." Ashki smiled slightly. "It is peaceful." She looked at the dancers. "Sometimes peace is found with other people too." For a moment neither moved. Then Mara offered her hand. The great warrior who feared no enemy suddenly looked nervous. Mara laughed. "Are you afraid of one dance?" Ashki finally took her hand. The drums continued. The stars shone above them, and somewhere deep inside, a wound began to heal. Far beyond the village, the darkness that had stolen Chaitan's life was finally gone, but his memory remained, not as a source of pain, not as a source of guidance. The brother who had died, protecting his family, was still shaping their future, and everyone could feel it. Especially Ashki, especially Mara, and perhaps for the first time, both were beginning to imagine a future together. Spring arrived fully. The valley became green again. Flowers appeared across the hills. The village slowly returned to normal life. But not everything was the same. People now looked at Ashki differently, not only as a warrior, but as a man who had endured suffering without losing his honor. Young hunters often followed him. They wanted to learn from him. Ashki taught them patience before courage, truth before pride. And responsibility before glory. One morning, Mara joined him near the horse pens. "You sound like a chief already," she teased. Ashki smiled. "My father would disagree. Your father speaks proudly of you every day." The words surprised him. Tacoma rarely praised anyone openly. Mara laughed. "He thinks nobody notices." For a moment, they stood together in comfortable silence. Their friendship had become something deeper, something both understood. Yet, neither rushed. They had both lost too much. Meanwhile, trouble was growing beyond the valley. Several nearby settlements had been attacked. Livestock disappeared. Travelers were robbed. Rumors spread quickly. Some people blamed the Apache. Village. Others demanded revenge. One afternoon, a group of armed settlers arrived. Their leader was a hard man named Carter. He accused the Apache warriors of the attacks. Tahk Oma welcomed him peacefully. But Carter refused to listen. "We know your people are responsible." Tacoma remained calm. "You know nothing." The meeting grew tense. Several warriors reached for their weapons. Ashki stepped forward. "We will help find the real raiders." Carter laughed. "And why should I trust you?" Ashki looked directly at him. "Because I know what it means to be falsely accused." The words silenced everyone. Tacoma nodded slowly. Within hours, a search party was formed. Apache trackers and settlers rode together. Many doubted it would work, but Ashki was determined. The search lasted 3 days. On the 4th morning, they found the truth. The attacks had been carried out by a small outlaw gang hiding in the mountains. The same gang that once worked with Rusk. Several members had escaped after his capture. Now, they survived through robbery and violence. A battle followed, short but fierce. Ashki led the charge. By sunset, the gang was defeated. The stolen animals were recovered. The settlers finally saw the truth. The Apache village had been innocent. Again. When the group returned home, Carter approached Tacoma. The proud settler looked uncomfortable. "I was wrong." Tacoma simply nodded. Sometimes dignity was stronger than revenge. That evening, the village celebrated. Not because they had won a fight, but because peace had been protected. As the fires burned beneath the stars, Carter publicly thanked Ashki. The entire village watched. Respect replaced suspicion. Trust replaced fear. Later, after the celebration ended, Mara found Ashki alone beside the river. The moon reflected across the water. "You saved more than livestock today," she said. Ashki looked at the river. "I only followed the truth." Mara smiled softly. "That is why people follow you." For a long moment neither spoke. Then Mara took a small step closer. Ashki felt his heart race more than it ever had in battle. The distance between them disappeared, and beneath the moonlit sky, they shared their first kiss. Far above them, an eagle crossed the night sky, as if Chaitan himself were watching and approving. But neither Ashki nor Mara knew that an even greater challenge was approaching. One that would test not only Ashki's courage, but his future as the next chief of the Apache people. The next morning, Ashki left the village before sunrise. He carried only his bow, his knife, and his brother's memory. Chief Tacoma gave him permission to investigate, not as a son, not as a suspect, but as a warrior seeking truth. Mara wanted to come with him. At first, Ashki refused. The trail could be dangerous, but Mara remained firm. Chayton was my friend too. Ashki finally knotted Dot together. They followed the tracks, leading away from the trading camp. The trail crossed rocky hills and dry riverbeds. By midday, they reached a small abandoned campsite. Someone had stayed there recently. Ashki examined the ground carefully. Then he found something. A silver button. Mara recognized it immediately. It belongs to Rusk. Ashki placed it inside a small pouch. At last they had something. Not proof, but a beginning. That night they camped beneath a cliff. The stars covered the sky. For the first time since Chayton's death, Ashki spoke about his brother. He was always better with people. Mara smiled sadly. He made everyone laugh. Ashki nodded. He made me laugh too. The silence that followed was gentle. Not painful. Then Mara looked toward the fire. Did you know he once told me something? What? He said he would rather lose me than lose you. Ashki stared into the flames. The words struck deep, because he knew they were true. The brothers had loved the same woman, but neither had wanted to destroy the other. The next day they continued their search. Late in the afternoon, they reached a remote trading post. An old trapper recognized Rusk immediately. Yes, he was here. When? Ashki asked. The morning after the killing. Ashki exchanged a glance with Mara. That was important. Very important. What was he doing? The old man hesitated. Then he answered. Selling something. What? The trapper disappeared into his cabin. A moment later he returned, carrying a knife. Ashki's face froze. It was Chayton's knife. The weapon missing from the murder scene. Mara covered her mouth. The old trapper looked confused. What's wrong? Ashki carefully took the knife. The carved markings on the handle were unmistakable. His brother's name was there. The trapper pointed east. Rusk traded it to me for supplies. For several seconds nobody spoke. At last they had proof. Real proof. But before they could leave, a rifle shot exploded. The trapper collapsed instantly. Another shot struck the cabin wall. Ashki grabbed Mara and pulled her behind cover. A third shot followed. Rusk had found them. Ashki spotted movement among distant rocks. The traitor was not alone. 3 armed men were with him. Rusk shouted from afar. You should have stayed in the village. Ashki's eyes narrowed. Now there would be no more hiding. No more lies. Rusk had revealed himself. The battle lasted only minutes. Ashki moved like a hunting wolf. One outlaw fled. Another dropped his rifle and surrendered. The third disappeared into the hills, but Rusk escaped. Just barely. As evening approached, Ashki questioned the captured outlaw. At first, the man refused to speak. Then Ashki showed him the knife. The outlaw lowered his head. Finally he talked. And the truth was worse than anyone expected. Rusk had never intended to kill Chayton. His real target had been Ashki. He wanted both brothers out of his way. He planned to ambush Ashki near the river. But Chayton arrived first. The younger warrior discovered Rusk hiding in the darkness. A fight followed. Rusk stabbed him. Then he planted Ashki's bracelet beside the body. Everything had been planned. Everything except one thing. The truth surviving. Ashki listened without speaking. His fists tightened. Not from hatred. From grief. His brother had died protecting him without even knowing it. When the confession ended, Mara touched Ashki's shoulder. We can bring this to the village. Ashki nodded slowly, but he knew the story was not over. Rusk was still alive. And a desperate man was often the most dangerous. Far away, riding through the darkness, Rusk already knew the trap was closing. There was only one thing left for him to do. He turned his horse toward the Apache village, toward Mara, toward revenge, and toward the final mistake of his life. Rusk rode through the night. He knew Ashki would soon return with proof. His lies were collapsing. His only chance was to take Mara and disappear. Before sunrise, he reached the Apache village. Most warriors were away hunting. Only a few elders and women remained. Rusk slipped between the lodges unnoticed. He found Mara near the river gathering water. Before she could react, he grabbed her arm. A knife pressed against her side. "Make a sound and you die." Mara froze. Rusk forced her toward the trees, but someone saw them. A young boy named Tawa. The child immediately ran to Chief Tacoma. Within minutes, the village was searching. Meanwhile, Rusk pushed Mara deep into the hills. His face no longer carried its usual smile. Fear had turned him desperate. "You ruined everything," he said. "I refused you," Mara answered. "You chose them instead." Mara looked directly into his eyes. "No, you destroyed yourself." The words filled him with rage. He raised his hand, but before he could strike her, an arrow landed in the dirt beside his feet. Both turned. Ashki stood on a ridge above them. His bow was ready. Several warriors appeared behind him. Rusk's face went pale. Ashki stepped forward. "It is over." "No," Rusk shouted. He pulled Mara in front of him. "Stay back." For a moment, nobody moved. The wind blew across the canyon. Then Ashki spoke calmly. "My brother died because he discovered your trap." Rusk said nothing. The outlaw confessed. Still silence. "You framed me." At last Rusk laughed bitterly. "Your brother should have walked away." The words shocked everyone. Even Mara. It was the first time he had admitted anything. Ashki's eyes darkened. "You killed him." "Yes." The canyon became silent. Rusk continued. "He surprised me. We fought. He died. And I blamed you." Chief Tacoma had just arrived. He heard every word. Pain crossed the old chief's face. But now he finally knew the truth. His son had been innocent all along. Rusk realized his mistake too. Late. His confession had been heard by everyone. Panic filled his eyes. He shoved Mara aside and tried to run. Ashki released an arrow. The shaft struck Rusk's leg. He fell hard onto the rocks. Warriors quickly surrounded him. The chase was over. As they led the prisoner away, Tacoma approached Ashki. For several seconds neither spoke. Then the old chief placed a hand on his son's shoulder. "I doubted you." Ashki lowered his head. "You lost a son." "I understand." Tears appeared in the chief's eyes. "I almost lost two." That evening the village gathered around the council fire. For the first time since Chayton's death, the truth stood before everyone. And with the truth came the beginning of healing. But for Ashki, one difficult question still remained. What would happen between him and Mara now that the shadows were finally fading? A few weeks after the spring celebration, Chief Tacoma became ill. At first he ignored it. He still attended council meetings. He still rode through the valley. He still spoke with hunters and elders. But everyone could see his strength fading, especially Ashki. One evening the old chief called his son to the council lodge. Only the two of them were present. The fire burned. Quietly between them, Tacoma looked at his son for a long time. Then he spoke. "When I was young, I thought a chief needed strong hands." Ashki listened, silently, but age teaches different lessons. The old man smiled. "A chief needs a strong heart." Ashki understood what his father was saying, and he did not like it. "You will recover." Tacoma shook his head gently. "Perhaps." But both men knew the truth. The old chief continued. "The people already trust you. They trust you For now, the words hung in the air. Got finally, Tacoma leaned forward. If one day you become chief, remember something. Ashki nodded. Never let anger make your decisions. The lesson carried special meaning because anger had nearly destroyed his life after Chaitan's death. A few days later, a council of elders gathered. Many believed Ashki should soon become the next chief. Most supported him, but not everyone. A respected warrior named Nodin stood against the idea. Nodin was brave and experienced. Many younger warriors admired him. The next chief must be chosen carefully, he argued. No one disagrees, replied an elder. Nodin crossed his arms, then let the people decide. The proposal spread quickly through the village. Some supported Shkii. Others supported Nodin. For the first time in years, the community was divided. Ashki hated it. The last thing he wanted was conflict among his people. That evening he sat beside the river with Mara. He told her everything. Mara listened carefully. Then she smiled. You are worried? Of course. Why? Ashki looked surprised. The village is arguing. No. Mara shook her head. You are worried because you care. Ashki stared at the water. Maybe she was right. A selfish man would only think about winning. Ashki only wanted peace. The following week, the elders announced a public gathering. Both candidates would speak. Before the village. No weapons. No threats. Only words. The entire community gathered beneath the open sky. Nodin spoke first. He promised strength. Protection. Discipline. Many warriors applauded. Then Ashki stepped forward. The she crowd became silent. For a moment he said nothing. Then he looked around at the people he loved, the people who had once doubted him, the people he would gladly die protecting. I do not seek power, he began. Several elders exchanged glances. I seek unity. The crowd listened carefully. We have suffered enough loss. He glanced toward Chaitan's grave in the distance. We know what grief can do. His voice remained calm. Our future cannot be built on pride. The valley was completely silent now. It must be built on truth. Even Nodin listened. When Ashki finished speaking, nobody moved. For several seconds there was only silence. Then an elder stood. Then another. Then another. One by one, the village rose to its feet, not because Ashki was the strongest warrior, but because he was the man they trusted most. Nodin looked around and slowly smiled. The decision was obvious. He walked forward and extended his hand. You have my support. Ashki accepted it. Immediately. The crowd cheered. For the first time in many months, the village stood united. But as the celebration began, Tacoma watched quietly from a distance. Pride filled his heart. Yet he knew his own journey was nearing its end. And soon, a final farewell would have to be spoken. Summer arrived. The valley was alive with laughter once again. Children played beside the river. Hunters returned with good harvests. Families gathered around evening fires. For the first time since Chaitan's death, happiness no longer felt forbidden. Yet one shadow remained. Chief Tacoma was growing weaker. He rarely rode now. Most days he sat outside his lodge, watching village life with quiet pride. One morning he called Mara to visit him. The young woman entered respectfully. Oma smiled. You make my son happy. Mara lowered her eyes. He makes me happy, too. The old chief nodded. I hope to hear those words before I leave this world. Tears immediately filled Mara's eyes. Please don't say that. Tacoma chuckled softly. Every warrior eventually rides beyond the horizon. Before Mara left, the old chief gave her a small pouch decorated with eagle feathers. It had belonged to his late wife. One day this should belong to the woman beside the chief. Mara understood, and so did her heart. A few days later, Tacoma asked Ashki to walk with him. Father and son climbed a nearby hill overlooking the entire valley. The journey was slow. Several times, Ashki offered support. Several times Tacoma refused, not from pride, from dignity. When they reached the summit, the old chief sat upon a rock. Below them stretched the land he had protected his entire life. The river, the forests, village. The mountains beyond. Oma smiled. It is beautiful. Ashki sat beside him. Neither spoke for a long time. Finally, the old chief broke the silence. When your brother died, I thought my heart would never heal. Ashki looked down. So did I. Tacoma placed a hand on his shoulder. But grief is not meant to imprison us. The words carried the weight of wisdom earned through suffering. Chayton, Wold wants you to live. Ashki nodded slowly. I? No, the old chief smiled. And he would probably tell you to stop waiting and marry. Mara, for the first time in months. Both men laughed together. The sound echoed across the hillside. A few weeks later, Tacoma's condition worsened. The healers did everything they could. The elders remained by his side. Ashki rarely left his lodge. One peaceful evening, surrounded by family and friends, the old chief called his son closer. The firelight danced across the room. Tacoma's voice was weak but steady. You already know what kind of chief to become. Ashki struggled to speak. You taught me. The old man smiled. No, life taught you. Then he glanced toward the sky beyond the lodge entrance. Peaceful expression appeared on his face, and with one final breath, Chief Tacoma joined his ancestors. The entire village mourned for days. Fires burned in his honor. Stories were shared. Songs were sung. Children learned about the man who had guided his people through peace and hardship. When the mourning period ended, the elders gathered before the entire village. Their decision was unanimous. Ashki would become the new chief. As he accepted the eagle feather necklace of leadership, he felt both pride and sorrow. His father was gone. His brother was gone. Yet their lessons remained, and they would guide every choice he made. Standing beside the crowd, Mara watched with tears in her eyes. Not tears of grief, tears of hope. Because a new chapter was beginning. And soon, another important moment would arrive. One that would finally unite two hearts that had survived so much together. The day Ashki became chief, the entire valley celebrated. Drums echoed through the hills. Families gathered from distant camps. Even neighboring tribes sent representatives to offer respect. Yet despite the celebration, Ashki remained humble. He remembered everything. The day his brother died, the day his own people doubted him. The long search for truth, the lessons of his father. Those memories kept his feet on the ground. In the weeks that followed, Ashki proved himself worthy of leadership. Disputes were settled fairly. Hunters were treated equally. Widows and elders received support. The village became stronger than it had been in years. One evening, an elder approached him. You lead like Tacoma. Ashki smiled. I hope I lead like myself. The elder laughed. That is exactly what your father would have said. Meanwhile, Mara had become an important part of village life. Women sought her advice. Children followed her everywhere. She had arrived as a stranger. Now she belonged. One afternoon, she visited Chaitin's grave alone. She placed fresh flowers beside the stone marker. For a long moment she stood silently. Then she spoke softly. "You saved your brother." The wind moved through the grass. And because of that, many lives were saved. A single tear rolled down her cheek. But I think you already know that. When she returned to the village, she found Ashki waiting beside the river. The same place where they had shared so many conversations. The same place where hope had first returned to their lives. Ashki seemed unusually nervous. Mara immediately noticed. "You look more frightened than when you fought outlaws." Ashki laughed. "I think I am." That surprised her. The great warrior who had faced danger without fear now looked uncertain. He reached into a small leather pouch. Inside was a bracelet made from polished stone and eagle feathers. It had once belonged to his mother. Ashki took a deep breath, and he looked directly into Mara's eyes. "When my father gave leadership to me, he reminded me that no chief walks alone." Mara felt her heart race. Ashki continued, "I have lost people I loved." His voice softened. "But you helped me find my way again." Neither looked away. "You stood beside me when others doubted me." He held out the bracelet. "You stood beside me when I doubted myself." Tears filled Mara's eyes. The answer was already in her heart. "Ashki," he smiled, "will you build the future with me?" For a moment, Mara could not speak. Then she nodded. Yes. Ashki gently placed the bracelet around her wrist. The river flowed quietly beside them. The mountains stood silent in the distance. Everything felt peaceful. Everything felt right. That evening the village learned the news. The celebration lasted long into the night. Even the elders laughed like children. For the first time in many years, the future seemed bright. Yet before the wedding could take place, Ashki had one final duty, one final journey. A journey not of war, not of justice, but of remembrance. Because before beginning a new life, he wanted to honor the two men whose love and sacrifice had shaped his own. His father and his brother. The last chapter of their story was approaching, and it would bring healing to every heart in the valley. The day of the wedding arrived with clear skies and warm sunlight. Before dawn, the entire village was awake. Children ran between the lodges. Women prepared food. Warriors decorated the central gathering area with eagle feathers and wildflowers. Laughter filled the air. It was a day the people had been waiting for. A day of hope, a day of healing. Chief Ashki stood alone for a short time beside the river. The same river where he had first seen Mara. The same river where his life had changed forever. He looked at the flowing water and smiled. The journey had been long. He had lost his brother. He had lost his father. He had been accused of a crime he did not commit. Yet truth had survived. Honor had survived. And because of that, he was still standing. A familiar voice interrupted his thoughts. "You are hiding from your own wedding." Ashki turned and laughed. It was Vikasa. The old elder shook his head. "Your father would never let you forget this." For a moment, both men smiled. Then Vikasa became serious. "He would be proud of you." Ashki looked toward the sky. "So would Chaitin." The elder nodded. Double quotes, yes. A short time later, the ceremony began. The entire village gathered near the council grounds. Mara walked forward wearing the feather pouch Tacoma had given her before his death. Many people noticed it. Many smiled. It felt as though the old chief was present in spirit. Ashki stepped forward to meet her. For a few seconds, everything else disappeared. The crowd. The music. The noise. There was only Mara. The woman who had stood beside him during the darkest chapter of his life. The elders spoke blessings. Prayers were offered. And Ashki, and Ashki, Mara exchanged gifts as a symbol of their promise. Not promises of perfection. Promises of loyalty, honesty, and respect. The values that had carried them through every hardship. When the ceremony ended, the valley erupted with cheers. Children danced, drums echoed across the hills. Even the oldest elders laughed and celebrated. The feast lasted until nightfall. Stories were told around the fires. Many stories were about Thk Oma. Many were about Chaitan. Their names were spoken with love, not sadness. Love. Late that evening, Ashki and Mara walked away from the celebration for a few moments of peace. They climbed a small hill overlooking the village. Hundreds of firelights glowed below. The sight was beautiful. Mara leaned against him. Your father would have loved this. Ashki nodded. He probably arranged half of it from the spirit world. Both laughed. Then Ashki looked toward the stars. Among them he imagined two familiar faces. Thk Oma. And Chay Tun. Watching. Protecting. Still part of the family. Still part of the story. A gentle wind crossed the hill. At that same moment, an eagle appeared in the moonlight above them. It circled once over the village before disappearing into the night. Mara smiled. Do you think that was a sign? Ashki wrapped an arm around her shoulders. I do. Below them, the village celebrated. Ahead of them. A new life waited. Behind them. The truth had finally been revealed. Chaitan's name had been cleared. Ashki's honor had been restored. The family had survived. And love had endured. The story that began with suspicion and loss ended with truth, forgiveness, and hope. And for many years afterward, the people told the story of the two brothers. One who gave his life, and one who never stopped searching for the truth. Both remembered as heroes. Both remembered with honor.